made it!
Yeah.
Before there were cinematic universes, before every summer blockbuster came pre-packaged with sequels, merchandise deals, and a theme park ride already in the works. There was one film, shot on a shoestring, rejected by practically every studio in Hollywood, almost starring the wrong actor, that somehow became the highest-grossing movie of 1985 and one of the most beloved films ever made. We're talking about Back to the Future. And the story behind what you saw on screen? It is nothing compared to the absolute chaos that happened off it. Buckle up, because we are going 88 miles per hour into the drama, the secrets, and the absolutely unhinged decisions that almost killed this movie before it ever got made. These are 20 weird facts about Back to the Future that you almost certainly didn't know. Number 1. Hollywood said no over and over and over again. Let's start at the very beginning. And the beginning of this story is embarrassing for an industry that later couldn't print enough Back to the Future merchandise fast enough. Writers Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale had conceived the idea for the film back in 1980. The inspiration, believe it or not, came from something completely mundane. Bob Gale was visiting his parents one day and stumbled upon his father's old high school yearbook. He started flipping through it, saw that his dad had been class president, and found himself genuinely wondering if they had gone to school together at the same time, would he and his dad have actually been friends? That question spiraled into the concept of a son traveling back in time and befriending his own teenage father. Beautiful idea. Genuinely clever premise. Hollywood disagreed. Loudly. Repeatedly. Gale and Zemeckis pitched their script to studios and got rejected more than 40 times. More than 40. Not because the script was bad, but because, and this is the part that will make your eyes roll clean out of your head, studios didn't think it was raunchy enough. This was the early 1980s, and raunchy teen comedies were the cash cow of the moment. Studios looked at Back to the Future and essentially said, "This is too sweet, too clean. Take it to Disney." Disney, meanwhile, reportedly passed because they thought the storyline, where Marty's teenage mother develops romantic feelings for him, was too risque. So there it was. Too clean for the raunchy studios. Too risque for Disney. Stuck in absolute limbo. It wasn't until Zemeckis landed a massive commercial hit directing Romancing the Stone in 1984 that the doors suddenly swung open. With his new Golden Boy status, he approached Steven Spielberg, who agreed to produce the project through his Amblin Entertainment Company with Universal Pictures as the distributor. The same script that had been laughed out of 40 rooms was suddenly greenlit. 40 rejections. Let that stew. But if the script almost never got made, wait until you hear about the original version of The Time Machine. Number 2. The Time Machine was originally a refrigerator. That's right. Before the DeLorean. Before the flux capacitor. Before the iconic gull-wing doors and the spinning tire tracks burned into the asphalt. Doc Brown's Time Machine was going to be a refrigerator. In the early drafts of the script, Marty would have crawled inside a nuclear-powered refrigerator to travel through time. It was located out in the Nevada desert, and the whole sequence played out very differently from what audiences eventually saw. The DeLorean wasn't even in the picture. So what changed? A few things. Practically speaking, the filmmakers became concerned that if they showed a child climbing into a refrigerator on the big screen, kids in the real world might actually try to imitate it and get trapped inside. Safety concerns, essentially, helped kill the fridge concept. But there was also the question of visual spectacle. A fridge sitting in the desert? Fine. A sleek, stainless steel sports car with doors that open like wings, tearing through a parking lot, leaving flaming tire tracks behind it before vanishing into thin air? Now that's a movie moment. The DeLorean was chosen specifically because the production team thought it looked the most alien and otherworldly, like something that genuinely didn't belong in the world of 1955. They even acknowledged that its unusual appearance would help explain why the residents of 1955 might mistake Marty for an extraterrestrial visitor. Which leads us to the next bizarre fact on this list. Number 3. The movie was almost called Spaceman from Pluto. Yes, you heard that correctly. When Universal Studios executive Sid Sheinberg read the script, he sent a now infamous memo to Zemeckis and Spielberg suggesting that the title Back to the Future was too weak and uncommercial. His suggestion? Rename the entire film Spaceman from Pluto, tying into the alien-like appearance of the DeLorean and leaning into the sci-fi angle. Spielberg, to his absolute credit, handled this with a masterclass in diplomacy. He wrote back to Sheinberg, thanking him for his hilarious joke memo, essentially playing it off as if Sheinberg had been kidding all along and that everyone had a great laugh. Sheinberg, unwilling to admit he hadn't been joking, let the matter drop entirely. Back to the Future kept its name, and Spaceman from Pluto became nothing more than a footnote in Hollywood trivia history. Now, you might be wondering, with all this chaos in pre-production, who was actually going to star in this thing? Number 4. Half of Hollywood auditioned for Marty McFly. The role that made Michael J. Fox a household name was, by all accounts, a role he almost never got anywhere near. When Zemeckis and Gale were casting Marty McFly, they had a very specific wish list, and the names on that list read like a who's who of 1980s Hollywood talent. Among those considered for the role, John Cusack, Johnny Depp, C. Thomas Howell, Ralph Macchio, Charlie Sheen, Ben Stiller, John Cryer, Robert Downey Jr., Matthew Modine, and even Billy Zane, who ended up with a small role in the film anyway. The first choice, right from the very beginning, was Michael J. Fox. The problem? Fox was completely locked into his role as Alex P. Keaton on the hit TV series Family Ties, and the show's producers flatly refused to let him out to do a film. So with Fox officially unavailable, the filmmakers moved on. C. Thomas Howell was initially the frontrunner. But then studio chief Sid Sheinberg saw an early screening of the drama film Mask and became obsessed with one of its young stars, a then unknown actor named Eric Stoltz. Sheinberg pushed hard for Stoltz, and with the filming date approaching and no other option confirmed, Zemeckis agreed. Eric Stoltz got the part, and then things got very interesting. Number 5. Eric Stoltz filmed for weeks before being fired, and it cost $4 million. Principal photography on Back to the Future began on November 26, 1984. For several weeks, Eric Stoltz showed up to set every day, put on Marty's puffy red vest, and filmed scene after scene after scene. Here's the thing about Eric Stoltz. By all accounts, he is a genuinely talented actor. The issue was that he approached Marty McFly the way a serious dramatic actor would approach any role, with emotional depth, method-style preparation, and intense commitment to internal truth. Which sounds great, except that Back to the Future is a comedy. A light, zippy, perfectly calibrated comedy where the lead character needed to be funny, loose, and endlessly charming. Stoltz, according to director Zemeckis, was simply playing it too straight. He was committed to the emotional reality of the scenes rather than the comedic timing. As early as December 30th, 1984, just over a month into filming, Zemeckis was reviewing footage with his editors and growing increasingly uncomfortable with what he was seeing. The decision was made. Stoltz had to go. And Michael J. Fox, now with a small window of availability that had opened up in Family Ties' schedule, was brought in. But reshooting all those weeks of footage, that wasn't free. Recasting and reshuffling the production added an estimated $4 million to the budget, and the filming schedule had to be completely rearranged to accommodate Fox's existing TV commitments. Which brings us to the next piece of utter madness on this list. Number 6. Michael J. Fox was filming 2 productions simultaneously, and his drivers had to carry him to bed. Michael J. Fox's first day on the Back to the Future set was January 15, 1985. And from that day forward, for months, he lived what can only be described as a genuinely superhuman schedule. During the day, Fox filmed Family Ties. At night, he drove over to the Back to the Future set. Often, he wouldn't wrap until 3 or 4 in the morning. Then he'd go home, sleep for a few hours, and do it all over again. On weekends, the schedule got even more punishing because Family Ties filmed in front of a live studio audience, which meant daytime commitments bled into evening ones. Fox has admitted that he was running purely on adrenaline during this period. He was so exhausted on some nights that the Teamster drivers entrusted with dropping him home after filming would literally have to carry him to bed. He was asleep before he even reached the door. Here's the twist, though. Fox later said in interviews that the sheer delirium of sleep deprivation might have actually helped his performance. Marty McFly, after all, is a character who is constantly disoriented, confused, and overwhelmed by his situation. Fox didn't have to act any of that. He genuinely was those things. He even ad-libbed several lines simply because he was so exhausted he forgot the intended dialogue. Some of those improvised lines made it into the final film. But what about the man on the other side of that legendary duo? What about Doc Brown himself? Number 7. Christopher Lloyd literally threw the script in the trash. Of all the wild stories in the making of this film, this one might be the most jaw-dropping, because the man who would go on to deliver one of cinema's most iconic performances, the shock of white hair, the wild eyes, the legendary Great Scott, very nearly didn't do the movie at all. When Christopher Lloyd first received the Back to the Future script, he read through it, and then, by his own admission, he put it in the waste paper basket. He didn't think it was for him. He wasn't interested. He threw it away. Fortunately, something nagged at him. He retrieved the script from the trash, read it again, and still wasn't entirely sold. But he agreed to meet with director Robert Zemeckis. That meeting changed everything. Zemeckis' vision for the character, his energy, and his enthusiasm convinced Lloyd to sign on. Lloyd has since said that the moment he arrived on set and felt the atmosphere of the production, he knew something special was being made. His instincts about the character, he pushed back against the original vision of Doc Brown as a wise, sage-like older man, and insisted on playing him as a full-blown eccentric, a wild genius who was barely keeping it together. Turned out to be exactly right. But Lloyd wasn't even the first choice. Among those seriously considered for the role of Doc Brown were Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Robin Williams, John Cleese, Gene Hackman, and James Woods. An entirely different movie with an entirely different energy would have resulted from any one of those castings. Lloyd found the script in the trash, and the rest is history. Number 8. You can still spot traces of Eric Stoltz in the film. Sort of. This one's a fan favorite that drives obsessives nuts, though it's more subtle than outright footage. Remember Eric Stoltz's 5 weeks of filming? Not all was scrapped. A few background shots and outtakes survived in early cuts, and persistent rumors swirled about wide-angle glimpses during the Libyan terrorist chase at Twin Pines Mall, where Marty's in the radiation suit. Frame-by-frame breakdowns by fans swear it's Stoltz's build behind the wheel in some distant shots, though the production insists everything visible was recast or doubled with Fox. The real gold, in 2015's 30th anniversary Blu-ray, producers finally released official Stoltz test footage, 30 years hidden out of kindness. Co-writer Bob Gale said they held it back so Stoltz wouldn't feel embarrassed. Now it's out there, fueling endless what-if debates. Now, here's a question that doesn't get asked often enough. What was going on with the people who weren't even the lead characters? Number 9. The actor playing Marty's dad was actually younger than Marty. Crispin Glover, who played the awkward, spineless George McFly, Marty's father, was, in real life, younger than Michael J. Fox. The actor playing the teenage dad was born after the actor playing his teenage son. Fox was born in June 1961. Glover was born in September 1964. That's a gap of over 3 years, with the dad being the younger of the two. In film, this kind of casting is not unheard of. Aging and de-aging makeup can do extraordinary things. But there's something wonderfully absurd about it when you sit with it. The man spending hours in the makeup chair to look like a middle-aged father in 1985 was, in reality, a 20-year-old who was younger than the teenage boy he was supposed to have fathered. And speaking of Crispin Glover, his contributions to the film went even further than most people realize. Many of George McFly's most memorable quirks, the shaking hands, the bizarre honking laugh during The Honeymooners, were not in the script. They were ad-libbed entirely by Glover himself. He later explained that he envisioned the 1985 version of George as a deeply unhappy man, and that the strange, forced laugh was George's way of manufacturing a happiness he didn't actually feel. That is genuinely profound character work. From a 20-year-old, playing someone's dad. Number 10. Crispin Glover. Didn't come back for the sequels, and it changed Hollywood law. The producer's fix for George McFly in Part 2, hire lookalike Jeffrey Weissman, slap on a prosthetic nose and chin to mimic Glover, then intercut it with actual Part 1 footage of Glover from the 1955 scenes. No permission, no compensation. Glover discovered it via promo stills. He sued for unauthorized use of his likeness and won big. The settlement? Reportedly around $760,000. But the ripple effect was seismic. Glover's case directly prompted Screen Actors Guild to overhaul rules in 1989, mandating explicit consent and pay for reusing an actor's image, body, or mannerisms without them. Those protections govern Hollywood to this day. One ticked-off actor from Back to the Future rewrote the industry playbook. Number 11. Huey Lewis shows up to reject his own music. This one is delightful in the most self-referential way imaginable. In the opening scenes of the film, Marty McFly's band is auditioning for a high school dance. They launch into a thunderous rendition of a rock song. A judge at the audition stands up, covers his ears, and declares them far too loud. The band is rejected. That judge? That's Huey Lewis, the man who wrote and recorded The Power of Love, the song that plays during the film's opening montage and became one of the year's biggest hits, appears on screen to reject a version of his own music, and he improvised the rejection line. The screenplay just indicated that a judge would turn the band down. The specific wording of the dismissal was Huey Lewis making it up on the spot. It became one of the film's early laugh lines. Lewis was also involved in the film's soundtrack more broadly. He and his band The News contributed both The Power of Love and Back in Time. There is a wonderfully circular quality to it all. The man helped write the movie's sound, showed up on camera to reject that very sound, and was probably laughing the entire time. Number 12. Marty McFly didn't actually sing Johnny B. Goode. One of the most iconic sequences in the entire film is Marty McFly at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, launching into an electrifying, anachronistically ahead-of-its-time performance of Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Goode, complete with him playing the solo behind his head like Jimi Hendrix. Here's the thing, though. That voice you hear belting out the song, that is not Michael J. Fox. The actual singing was performed by Mark Campbell, a member of the 1980s band Jack Mack and the Heart Attack. As for the guitar playing, Fox was coached extensively by Hollywood guitar instructor Paul Hansen to make his hand movements look convincingly realistic on camera. Hansen taught him how to simulate every part of the performance, including the crowd-pleasing behind-the-head solo, so that the illusion on screen would be airtight. Fox looks like he's playing. He looks like he's singing. But the voice belongs to Mark Campbell, and the actual guitar on the soundtrack belongs to session musician Tim May. The character of Marty McFly is even credited as a performer on the song in some versions of the film's credits. A fictional teenager is listed as a musician. Hollywood has always had a flair for the surreal. But wait, the Johnny B. Goode sequence sparked something bigger than just casting trivia. Number 13. The the Johnny B. Goode scene sparked debate over Rock's origins. That enchantment under the sea. Climax didn't just slay audiences, it kicked off a cultural eyebrow raise that still simmers. Marty drops Johnny B. Goode in 1955, pre-Chuck Berry's recording, with a bandmate calling Cousin Chuck about the new sound. The gag implies a white teen from the future jumpstarts rock and roll, a genre forged in black innovation. While not a full-blown 1985 uproar, critics, including some black commentators, called it out as tone-deaf, and it's fueled modern re-evaluations questioning if it erases Berry's roots. Zemeckis framed it as pure time-travel homage, not history rewrite. But it's a wrinkle in the film's otherwise flawless shine. Number 14. Ronald Reagan rewound the movie to watch his own joke again. One of the film's best gags involves Marty explaining to the 1955 version of Doc Brown that the President of the United States in 1985 is Ronald Reagan. Doc's response is incredulous. Reagan, the actor? He finds the idea preposterous. This exchange was so politically sensitive that the studio sent the relevant portion of the script directly to the White House before the film was released. They were genuinely worried that a sitting president might take offense at being the punchline of a movie joke. Ronald Reagan did not take offense. According to reports, Reagan was so tickled by the scene when the film was screened at the White House that he reportedly asked the projectionist to stop the movie and rewind it so he could watch the moment again. He apparently laughed enormously at his own expense. Reagan reportedly even referenced the film in a subsequent State of the Union address, paraphrasing the film's most iconic final line, suggesting that where America was going, it didn't need roads. Whether that was a genuine tribute or just a politician being charming is debatable. But it shows the cultural footprint the film had made, and fast. Number 15. China long regarded time travel flicks like this as taboo. While Reagan chuckled at the White House, Chinese censors took a dimmer view of Back to the Future's premise. Mainland China has a history of scrutinizing time travel stories for distorting history, treating the past as playground undermines official narratives. Broad rules, ramped up in the 2010s for TV film, banned or censored many such tales. Back to the Future? It faced delays and folklore-level bans in the 80s and 90s, only widely available post-2000s. No smoking gun decree exists, but it fits the pattern of Western time hoppers getting the side-eye. One man's flux capacitor is another's historical heresy. From political controversy to pure, unabashed on-set chaos, let's talk about the prop that wasn't really a prop at all. Number 16. The Mr. Fusion machine is just a coffee grinder. At the end of the first Back to the Future film, Doc Brown's DeLorean returns from the future with an exciting upgrade. Bolted onto the back of the car is a gleaming device called the Mr. Fusion Home Energy Reactor, an apparent miracle of future technology that converts household garbage into the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity needed for time travel. It is a Krupp's kitchen coffee grinder, with a small, futuristic-looking label stuck to the front of it. That's it. The prop department found a household coffee grinder, slapped a label on it, stuck it on the car, and audiences accepted it completely as a device from the year 2015. It has since become one of the most beloved and recognized props in film history. People have it tattooed. Replica versions sell online for serious money. It was always just a coffee grinder. Number 17. The man in the dog suit drove Einstein through time. When Doc Brown demonstrates his invention by sending Einstein the dog through time, the very first time travel in the film, it appears that the dog is sitting in the driver's seat of the DeLorean as the car accelerates toward the camera and then vanishes into a burst of flame. Obviously, the dog was not driving. But here's the part that goes one step further than you might expect. There was a human being in a dog costume inside the DeLorean, crouched in the driver's seat, operating the vehicle for the stunt. The production couldn't simply rig the car to drive itself for this particular sequence, so a person dressed as a dog was behind the wheel. A person. in a dog suit, driving a time machine. The commitment to practical solutions on that production was, apparently, total. Number 18. Ford offered the filmmakers cash to replace the DeLorean, and they said no. Here's a piece of behind-the-scenes drama that speaks volumes about the integrity of Zemeckis and Gale as filmmakers. Ford, the car company, approached the production and offered a significant cash contribution to the budget in exchange for the filmmakers agreeing to replace the DeLorean with a Ford Mustang as the time machine. Given that the film was being made on a relatively tight budget, with money already being burned on the Stoltz to Fox recasting, this was not a trivial offer. The filmmakers turned it down. Their reasoning was simple but important. A Mustang, however iconic, was a normal car. It was the kind of car a regular person might drive. Doc Brown was not a regular person. He was a wild-haired, eccentric genius who lived in a mansion full of clocks and had apparently been building time machines in his garage. A Mustang would have been completely out of character. The DeLorean, with its bizarre stainless steel body and gull-wing doors, was the only vehicle that made sense for who Doc Brown was as a character. The money would have helped enormously. They said no anyway, and the DeLorean became immortal. Number 19, the Twin Pines Mall becomes the Lone Pine Mall, and it's not an accident. This one rewards the truly attentive viewer, and it is one of the most elegantly constructed details in any film from that decade. When Marty first travels back to 1955, he materializes on the Twin Pines Ranch, a wide stretch of property with, naturally, a pair of pine trees at the entrance. In his scramble to escape an angry farmer, Marty accidentally drives the DeLorean directly over one of those pine trees, destroying it. When he returns to 1985 at the end of the film, the mall where the whole adventure began, previously called Twin Pines Mall, now has a new name on its sign. It's called the Lone Pine Mall. The destruction of that single pine tree in 1955 rewrote the name of the shopping center 30 years in the future. It's a tiny detail. No character ever points it out. No one says, "Notice anything different about that sign?" It's just there, winking at whoever was paying close enough attention. An entire time travel consequence conveyed in 4 changed words on a background sign. That level of craft, that absolute commitment to internal consistency, is a large part of why Back to the Future endures when so many other films from its era have faded. Number 20. The film became the highest-grossing movie of 1985, despite an almost disastrous release. After Everything, The 40 Rejections, The Refrigerator Time Machine, The Spaceman from Pluto title drama, The Eric Stoltz Firing, The Michael J. Fox Sleep Deprivation Chaos, The Lloyd Trash Can Rescue, The Sid Sheinberg Title Push, and that borderline reckless post-production sprint, Back to the Future hit test screenings, and the reaction was insane. Audiences were losing their minds. Scores were through the roof. The kind of buzz studios dream about and rarely get. So Universal Pictures did something bold. They moved the release date up. Instead of a safe August rollout, the film was shoved into July 3, 1985, right in the middle of blockbuster season. There was just one tiny issue. The movie wasn't ready. Editing was still being finished. Some effects weren't even complete. The whole thing was held together with urgency, caffeine, and a bit of blind faith. It was messy, chaotic, and honestly, kind of a gamble. Didn't matter. Back to the Future opened and immediately took over. It dominated theaters for months, pulled in $381 million worldwide, and became the biggest film of 1985. Critics loved it. Audiences loved it more. And in 2007, the Library of Congress officially stamped it as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and added it to the National Film Registry. The movie studios didn't know how to handle the one that was somehow too wholesome and too edgy at the same time. The one that nearly had a different lead, a ridiculous title, and a dog suit stunt driving its finale. That movie is now preserved as history. And somehow, against all odds, every single chaotic decision worked. There you have it, 20 wild, verified, absolutely unhinged facts about the movie that Hollywood said no to 40 times and audiences said yes to forever. Back to the Future wasn't just a great film. It was a great film that was this close to never existing at all, or existing in some parallel timeline version where it was a DeLorean-less, Foxless, Lloydless shadow of what we got. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, do me a favor and drop a comment telling me which fact genuinely surprised you the most, because I have a feeling the coffee grinder is going to be a popular answer. And if you enjoy this kind of deep dive expose into the films you grew up with, subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, where you're going, you don't need roads.